Welcome back to Letters of Intent. My name is Pankaj Raval. I'm the founder of Carbon Law Group, and I'm joined today by my co-host Sahil Chaudhry. Sahil, how are you today?
I'm doing great. And today we've got a lights, camera, action episode. We've got Nadia Davari, who's going to be joining us today. I know, Pankaj, she's been a friend of yours, but I'm going to get the chance to get to know her today. She's an extremely accomplished attorney, entertainment attorney, film producer. She's very well recognized in the entertainment spaces. And we're going to learn a lot about what has changed in the entertainment business, what has not changed, how to think about deals, and how to think about risk.
Absolutely. So, yeah, it's a very exciting episode. Nadia and I are in the same professional networking group, Provisors, and we've seen each other over the years. And I've always been intrigued by kind of what she does and how she helps her clients in the entertainment space. So this is going to be a great opportunity for listeners to learn really the intricacies of what it means to deal with entertainment law, entertainment legal issues that can arise, and how to hopefully avoid any mistakes that may come up as you try to put together a project or understand what even deal making is in the world of entertainment today.
So, Nadia, we would love to hear from you on what were your early influences? Where did you grow up? Why law? What drew you to the profession?
Hello, I'm Nadia Davari. Thank you for having me and for the invitation to join you today. I am a native of Southern California, so I am at UCLA, USC. Go Bruins, go
Hey,
Trojans.
someone else I know is
Yeah,
that.
I've got the same combo, Nadia,
Yeah.
but I'm the opposite, flipped.
You're flipped. Yeah,
I'm your counterpart.
we called Brugens. So yeah, you couldn't get any more LA than that. And I grew up where people I know and I went to school with are in the business, neighbors and friends, and everybody's kind of this. If you're in LA, it's all around you. It's an industry town.
Yeah,
So it's a major part of our economy. So
right.
I was always around it, and USC is very big on film and entertainment. And UCLA has the number one film school, arguably, between USC and UCLA and NYU, and then USC as well. So it was all around us. And at USC, in law school, in your third year, you can take a certain number of units in any of the schools in the area that you're interested in practicing law in other schools on campus. And I did a couple classes on entertainment law in the Marshall School of Business. They have a concentration on the entertainment business. So I took some of their classes, which qualified for upper division classes for at the law school. And that's where it kind of started. And my family members are in the arts and the creative world. So the combination of all of the above kind of
But
brought
we did
area.
notice you studied molecular biology, and I, for one, went into law because I'm not very good at math and science. You did the opposite. You've accomplished both. So, what drew you to molecular biology, and how did you translate that in the legal profession?
So I actually loved science and math. Math was my best subject in school, especially molecular biology, because a lot of the advances in medicine now are on the molecular level. And for example, the vaccines, mRNA vaccines, those were things that I was studying when I was an undergrad at UCLA. So the analytical skills are the same. Those are transferable skills. And if anything, the scientific background, I think, allows me to think in a more concise way and issue spot and rather take a broader look at the issues and not get lost in the weeds. Kind of take a step back. But it's interesting you bring this up because for the first year, it was a shift in the way of thinking, especially the way we take the law school exams, as you well know. Issue spot as much as you can and throw in everything just to showcase how much you know. And that's not how you take an exam in science or math
Right.
in undergrad.
You have
So
to get to an answer and show your work, right? Yeah. Versus law. I learned the hard way too that you got to just say as much as you can. Say
Right.
the goal is to say as much as you can and invent ways why it might be relevant. So that was a
right.
whole new concept. It took a while to get used to that.
Right, right.
So
Absolutely. That's fascinating. So taking us to entertainment now, you went to law school. USC obviously is a great law school for entertainment law. And you said you grew up kind of around it being in LA. How did you kind of cut your teeth on entertainment law? What was your kind of first experience like and how has the industry changed over the years?
So I got my first job because I saw a posting in the Student Career Center at USC. It was a law firm in Venice Beach on the boardwalk.
How cool. That's fun.
Yeah, yeah, in one of those Frank Gehry lofts.
Oh,
And
nice. Okay.
yeah, and one of the major clients of that firm was right next door, and it was a studio that has made a lot of independent, they a lot of very famous independent directors and artists got their start with them. Some very famous names. And they were our neighbor, they were right next door, and they would pop in and that's where I learned entertainment law is definitely not for the weak of heart. It's really a whole nother business. Some of the things you hear about the business is there's some truth to it. And I continued after I graduated. I had friends who were at the big firms making 200 plus a year, and that was not the salary there. It was a fraction.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing about entertainment, right? That's what I found. When I moved out to LA, I did some entertainment law, and I find that there's a understanding that you're gonna be just making less, paid less, starting at the bottom. You gotta,
You gotta be
in
poor.
entertainment. Yeah, yeah, you're gonna be poor for a long time, right? I mean,
Gonna be poor
I
for a
feel
very, very long time.
yeah,
And
but
finding mentors is not always easy. I mean, I hear mixed things from my friends who are in different other areas of law, but the mentorship is hard to find. Sometimes
yeah,
you do, but there's a lot of it that you have to learn on your own, and it's something that you have to really want to do. I have had several people, prospective students, asking me about this area, and after discussing it with them, they've changed their mind. They've decided to do other kinds of law.
yeah,
Yeah,
interesting. So you've dissuaded people from pursuing this. Is it,
on a
you know
regular basis. Yes.
Interesting, interesting. Tell us a little bit more about that. Why do you feel like it's not for the faint of heart, or what's so challenging about entertainment law?
So it sounds really glamorous and sexy, but on a
Yeah,
day-to-day basis, it's work, as you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And for us who are trying to make a living at it is about making a living at it. And a lot of times your clients or the project doesn't go, or the financing falls through, or something happens, and people, just are not very happy with the outcome. If the money's tight, they don't want to pay. So a
right.
lot of that stuff comes into play, or they need a lawyer before the financing is put together. Yeah, a lot of that goes on. But I'm speaking about it from the perspective of a lawyer representing the independents. So
Right.
you have the studio lawyers and then you have the talent lawyers too. Now those while you think entertainment law, there's so many different subspecialties and areas within entertainment law. It's actually a very large area. It has a large scope. So just speaking about the specific area that I'm practicing at the moment, it which takes up most of my practice.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about that? What specific area are you focusing on now?
Yeah, I'm representing mainly independent production companies and producers and some talent as well.
Okay.
But even with the bigger companies, all the consolidations that are happening, I have friends who are at the studios who so many of them have been laid off because of the consolidations and
Yeah.
all the mergers. I don't really recommend it to friends and family.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a very volatile time for entertainment, and I don't feel like it's always been there. But is it because there's a transition happening, digital media and like the social media? Is it that, or do you have an idea of like why is there so much volatility right now in the entertainment market?
Well, right now it's AI.
Yeah.
It's affecting all of us. It's not just
Yeah.
entertainment, it's
Yeah. All
lawyers,
of us.
it's
Yeah.
physicians, it's anybody with professional skills, people who write software for the computers. It's affecting everybody
Yeah.
across the board. But as you may recall, a few years ago, we had the strikes, and the folks in the entertainment world are at the forefront of, I feel like, with First Amendment issues and Deep Throat, and then now even the internet, and then now with AI affecting the laws in Ninth Circuit and in California. So, but now it's kind of widespread. It's affecting everybody.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about how we were offline talking a little bit about the box office model versus now the streaming model? Did you go through that transition, or in what ways has your practice changed over time?
Well, there was a time in which there were the video stores. I think I was still in, it was way before I became a lawyer, where
Mhm.
we used to go. I remember I'd go with my mom and dad or my siblings. We'd go to the video store and rent videos. And then it went to Netflix would send you those discs.
Right. Right.
So there was a time where the model was that you would make a project It would go to a film, it would go to the theater, people would go in the theater and watch it there, there'd be a long window, and people would wanna have that experience, and then it would go to home video.
Right.
Now, those windows have sort of collapsed, and, that revenue model has kind of changed, which makes it more difficult to predict the outcome of making a movie that's across the board for studios or independents all across the board, and that happened with the streamers and getting into content making and their control on the audience and the distribution channels. Now it's all about access to the eyeballs
Mm.
and finding the audience. So whoever has that part of the business figured out, oftentimes I have clients who are filmmakers and I speak on various panels at film festivals, film schools, and law schools and entertainment law classes about making content. And while it's about your vision and what message you want to make and what movie you want to make and the creative process, you kind of and we're getting into the technical side. I don't know how far you wanna go down
No,
this
yeah, no,
path.
I think this is fascinating. I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm interested to it. So please, please, yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a eye out to the end of the process. That's often an afterthought, but it should be your primary thought. Like, where
Mhm.
are you gonna go? Who's gonna watch this? Kinda like writing an essay in college in your English class. You would outline it and you would think about what's your point and then how do you prove it? Or
Right,
even in law school, issue spotting, eye racking.
right.
So I kind of compare it to that same process. Who are you trying to reach? How are you going to reach them? And what is your message? So you kind of want to think about distribution and
Mm.
marketing from
Yeah.
the onset.
So, on that point, I understand international distribution rights have historically played a role in financing film and TV deals. Is that still the case today? What does the financing diet look like today when it comes to a film
Yeah,
or
that
TV show?
that model is kind of dying. It's still there, but it's not the way it used to be. You used to be able to finance your movie before you made it, and you have what we call the pre-sales, and
Right.
that's what you're talking about. So, yeah, that is an issue. And that's what has changed. Those models are not structured in the same way anymore. And I think that streaming has something to do with it, but also the cost of going to the movie theater. Imagine for a family of four buying the tickets, paying for parking, paying for snacks. It's quite a financial commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
It's $100. Yeah, more than $100. Yeah,
So
easy.
I
Yeah.
I bet these negotiations are quite tough, especially these days. You're dealing with studios. It sounds like you were mentioning you represent independent production companies and talent. What's your strategy or what's your mindset when you are negotiating with a large studio today? What are some leverage points that you know? What are some cards you usually have in your hand? Or how would you advise someone who's a producer today to go into those negotiations with a studio?
So that is such a broad question. It really depends on the specific fact pattern of, or the specific situation, specific clients. And I'm not trying to evade the
No.
question, but it's really specific to the situation, the project, the IP, the people attached. It's really will change depending on those factors. And so I can't really give you a question or answer. It will really depend on who the producer is, and you're not really negotiating with the studio per se, you're really negotiating with talent, and then you're going into distribution, so the studio doesn't really well, unless you're representing talent, and then you're negotiating with the studio, which I do that too. I represent writers and directors and producers who are hired by networks and studios, then that hasn't changed much, but the things you ask for, especially because of AI and our agreements change as technology changes. We have to keep it updated. So they become longer, as you can imagine. I'm sure the same thing is in your practice. They become longer and longer and longer. You have provisions each time, each go around.
Yeah.
But a different question would be, I don't know if this is happening in your practice, clients coming to you and saying, I put this into ChatGPT.
Of course,
Every
yeah.
day, every day, every day. I
Yeah,
mean, they're advising us now at this point.
yeah. I actually had this conversation with a a client yesterday, and he said, "Well, I put this into the talent lawyer wanted this, and I put this into ChatGPT." I'm like, "Well, you have a real lawyer, you can ask me."
Yeah, exactly. I'm right here.
And I've been telling you, "Well, but you didn't," I'm like, "No, I'm actually telling you," and it's really mind-boggling how wrong AI is.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
I
Exactly.
had one client who there's a lot of corporate legal work that goes also along with what we do. As you can imagine,
Yeah.
financing agreements and also setting up entities every time you make a project and
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yeah. So
So she sent me an email asking for, he said, something to the effect of, "Can you send me a template for an operating agreement?" And I
yeah.
said, you can imagine what that response was. And then what state? Let's start with that.
Yeah.
How many partners and
Right.
all the list of questions. How is it managed and
Yeah.
who gets how much of the company and how do you decide on additional all the questions that you would ask. I
Yeah.
sent him out a very long email with all the questions that we need to answer. And then about a week later, he writes me back, "Oh, Nadia, I put this into Chat GPT and these are the answers."
This is the problem. I think that you really identified the issue is that people don't want to think anymore. They're just like, let's just give it to AI. You have to think about these issues. Yeah, these questions.
And some of the answers from AI was such gibberish
Right.
but it became very apparent that this particular client just didn't feel like he should pay for a legal advisor. Even though I've actually known him for a long time and most of my work is from other clients, I would say 90% of it, or other lawyers. It's
Hmm.
either other clients, 80% from other clients, 20% from other lawyers. It came to the point where I just sent him an email and I said, "Hey, if you don't want to work with us, that's fine, but just make sure an attorney reviews this and make sure that is complying with applicable law because you don't want to use something that basically doesn't make sense."
Yeah. I think that's sound advice.
Absolutely. That's great
We
advice.
would
You
concur
know,
with that advice.
and I
Yeah.
wonder
Yeah.
if a lot of artists, the law is a very logical side, and creativity is something more fluid typically. So, being at the intersection of those worlds, how do you like to work with talent in a way that allows the law to be the architecture, but lets the creativity flow and takes into account kind of the abstract, intangible?
That's an excellent question. I have a lot of times, especially with financiers, we have corporate lawyers from very large firms and very experienced attorneys, a lot of times from the East Coast, who try and negotiate those deals. And they come in with a certain expectations or certain issue spotting, and it's completely off. The saying that says, I don't want to use, please edit this out, barking up the wrong tree,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
Completely the wrong issues, the wrong things to worry about, and things that they should really be asking and worrying about, they're not.
Yeah.
And that would be only if you have experience in this area.
Right.
And to answer your question more specifically, Sahil, sometimes I have referred litigation matters to very capable litigators who are not as familiar with the entertainment business. I did that once. And it's a very fine way of speaking to the client,
Hmm.
because they're creatives. You have to do a certain amount of hand holding but then be firm, but only go so far, and then step back and explain in a certain tone and manner. And that's a whole nother skill. That's a whole nother set of skills. And that's something that comes with experience and kind of the people who are in the entertainment business and have been doing it for a while, the creatives, they're sharp. They wouldn't last if they weren't. They're very smart, they're very sophisticated. This is not a business for the weak, especially if you've been in it for a while. Be as a professional on this side or a creative in front of the camera, behind the camera in any capacity. So, very sophisticated clients, but it's a whole different lingo and way of communication is not you can't be very dry and one to one and you have to be considerate of that creative process. So
Yeah.
that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I was going to ask, is there one piece of like deal making advice or one negotiation tactic you've picked up over the years that you feel like you use on a fairly regular basis when and working on deals, particular to the entertainment world?
It's a really good question. So let's put it into different contexts. Just say that, as a client, you should be firm with what you know you can give, what you can give, what you can know your limits, and what you feel comfortable with in a deal, and start from that position and negotiate in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you hear like stories about talent asking for so much because they're valuing their services so high, but really not consistent with what the market is going to provide. Or even studio wants to pay obviously as little as possible so they can keep as much profit. So yeah, I just feel like it's tough, I think, in those negotiations when especially talent believes one thing and you perhaps don't see it the same way. But then how do you navigate
Well,
working with
I would
them?
add another layer to that.
Yeah,
Negotiating with a studio is different than negotiating with an independent producer.
that is true. That is true. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
negotiating with a studio, you want to be aggressive as a talent lawyer and try and do the best for you can for your client. And we all hear these stories about how there's creative accounting and monkey points. There was a big case with the monkey point, the back end, and how it's described and how it's defined. So they have a point. The
Right.
lawyers who are representing talent, without talent, there is no project, and they should be advocating to the best of their ability for their clients. So that makes total sense. However, when you veer off to the independent world, there is no vertical integration. There are different players that will do different parts of that. Sometimes the producer might have access to the distribution or sales agents as well, but most likely they're done by different people. So there's only so much control that that producer has, and there's only a limited amount of money. There's only so much they can do. So again, considering your audience and considering the deal structure and having a 360 view, which is why it's so important to having to grow up in this world and kind of know the business. And this is why usually to get into entertainment in whatever aspects, your music or film or TV, you start at the bottom. And that is for a reason. That's actually invaluable experience
Yeah.
because now you know how the business works, you know all the players, you make friends and associations that you all grew up with, and you can pick up the phone and ask questions from one of your colleagues that you knew when you were both coming up. So it's important to keep in mind what the deal is and what the parameters are. I can't emphasize that enough.
Mm.
That comes with experience and kind of being around it for a while.
Yeah.
Even with some entertainment lawyers, sometimes with the more junior attorneys, we run into those issues because they're asking for things that are not really reasonable in the context of the project.
Mhm.
It can't even be done.
Right, right.
I do have a question on how things have changed with AI. I imagine a lot of writers are using AI when it comes to maybe graphics and posters. And I'm just curious how that has affected your view of intellectual property, copyright, and if that touches your practice area at all.
So I have a client, a very talented filmmaker who made a wonderful documentary, and then he's written a book, and now he's working on a TV project, and he's been working on it for a while. So he called me up a few months ago and he was so excited and he said, "My God, Nadia, I'm putting it together and I have the outline and I'm putting in together the pilot and I'm figuring out what the arc is gonna be and I'm gonna do the episodes." And I'm like, "Oh, well, what happened? What's going on?" "Well, I'm using AI." I'm like, "Really? You're using AI?" "Oh, yeah, AI is so helpful. It's really helping me a lot." I'm like, "Oh, really? So are you putting it all in there? Do you realize that none of that is private information anymore? Now it's part of the public, training all the other
Yeah,
language models. Do you know that you can't copyright it?" "Really?"
yeah,
Yeah, copyright has to be created by humans, as you
yeah,
well know, you
yeah,
both well know, and that was a shocking new information to him. Well, yes, it's affecting it because people don't realize the consequences, that the information is dirty, that it hasn't been licensed, it could be violating somebody else's intellectual property rights, that you can't really copyright it if it's not generated by a human. And then you have issues of not being private anymore, being out there. So, yes. I have to kind of remind my clients, and I speak on about this on a lot of the panels I do, and kind of put people on notice to be careful in the way that they use AI to
Absolutely.
generate their creative work.
What are your thoughts on AI in general in terms of its use in law and also in the entertainment? Like, what do you see the future of AI in kind of what we do, but also in the entertainment world as well?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure if American audiences are really comfortable with AI generated characters. I mean, we had that Tilly actress,
That's
and
right.
people were not very happy with it. So I do know that in some other markets, there is AI generated content creators and influencers and the like. I'm not really sure if it has translated into our American appetites yet.
Yeah.
So I'm sure eventually it's coming for all of us and
Yeah.
everything.
It's come for Mickey Mouse already with
Yeah.
Disney and OpenAI, right?
Yeah,
The
they have
Yeah,
licensing of
some.
those characters.
Yeah, it's
right.
interesting.
And all the lawsuits that are going on by the
Yeah,
authors and the studios against the large language models.
yeah,
Yeah.
So, and all the books that have been used without the rights being licensed.
exactly.
So, as far as for our legal services, what do you guys think?
I mean, we use it we use it to like Lexus and things like that. We're very careful to not put like private information on any of the public services, but I leverage it a lot in terms of operations and quoting clients. And in some areas, it's become very useful in terms of the operations of the business. But again, do you think people need to, like you're saying, need to question it, right? You can't just blindly believe what you're getting is the right thing because oftentimes it will make errors, it will make mistakes. And I found recently that it sounds good. They've gone it to a place where it sounds very good, but if you actually look at it for like analyze it for depth, it doesn't really have much depth. It's like lacks depth or soul or something there that it's able to kind of piece together a lot of different sources and give you an interesting answer, but like it doesn't have the depth of insight that you would expect that I think we go through.
So
So that's my perspective.
I've experimented with Co-Counsel and we use Lexus AI. I think Lexus AI is great. So Lexus AI, if you're listening, sponsor our
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
You can
exactly.
contact us at sahil at carbonlg.com. But no, Lexus AI I think is very powerful because you're able to pull up precedents very quickly, very easily. It's not a substitute for legal analysis. It's not a substitute for your own judgment to evaluate. It takes you one step ahead of just finding a basic precedent. So, like if you're working on a deal, when you are able to plug in a fact pattern, I think it is able to generate some very useful precedents. So that's the extent I can say I think it's been helpful. It probably will get better over time. I agree. You cannot, we see a lot of cowboy chat GBT lawyering too. And it's easier for us to redraft an entire agreement than go through and redline somebody's
God,
chat
yeah.
GBT
Mm.
agreement, which happens all the time. And you just look at the M dashes and bullet points and you're like, okay, I already know I have to redraft this. So that's counsel for everyone who's listening. You're working with your attorney. Please don't give us the nightmare of your chat GBT work.
Don't just send us
There are tools
just
for this
output.
now. There are professional encrypted tools that we use, and attorneys have the sensibility to know how to insert a fact pattern, what the context is that AI is going to miss.
So what I'm
Yeah.
hearing from you is that it's a good tool, is another tool. Kind of we were using shepherdizing when I was in law school. We were
Right. Right.
shepherdizing. Nobody was looking up anything in any law book.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just taken that a step further, has made it
Yeah.
faster and quicker and more encompassing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But it has to be in the hands of a professional, a
Yeah,
trained professional who knows
I
how to use
agree.
it.
exactly. And to interpret
That's
it and
what I'm hearing.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I even was speaking with another litigator who wasn't even impressed with the Lexus AI. He didn't think it was thorough enough.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
hearing something different from you guys. You're having a better experience with it that
Well, no, I think it's still you need to go in and question the results. I go into those cases, I go into the information they provide and do my own searches too, without like we learn in law school, like kind of the connectors and things like that. I'll still go in and do my own searches because I agree you don't want to just rely on that. The other thing is like in transactional law where we're also sending demand letters and we're not having to put these in briefs that the court will look at. So I think if that was the case and we were drafting briefs, I would be definitely taking one more step to make sure that it's accurate and we're not missing anything
Okay, so
because
that's the
yeah,
difference. Yeah,
yeah,
this
that's
is
the
a
thing.
litigator who goes to court, yeah.
Right, exactly. And you definitely have to be a little more careful. If I was in front of a judge, I would be quadruple checking all this stuff and
Mhm.
going through it and fine tooth comb because even then, like it tends to simplify some of the holdings on cases too. I find when in reality there's actually a little bit more nuance there in terms of what these cases found in their holdings. But yeah, I know. I mean, it's interesting. I think it's coming. It's. I think you have to. My philosophy is like it's a wave that is coming, and we better kind of be ready for it rather than I'm not here to
Well,
fight it. Yeah.
I'm not really sure until we get to the stage of what they call super
Like
intelligence.
AGI, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that it is and you were talking about this in the meeting we had. I don't because it's limited by the information that you feed it. A lot of the information is inaccurate, biased, and racist, and
Mhm.
other things, and it lacks critical thinking skills. So it's only as good as what you feed it. And also because it's been trained on what has been created before, it can't there is no creativity, is
Right,
limited by what's has been created by definition
right.
is limited by what has come before. So I think that until the next generation comes, which I'm not sure is probably coming in pretty soon, we're just not there yet.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I think if you it's an interesting conversation, I think, for maybe in part two, because like we just talk about creativity, right? And what is creativity in the world today, right? Philosophically, that's a very interesting conversation. But then if you look at like fashion, style comes from a world of fashion. A lot of fashion is stolen, right? So how much creativity is there in fashion when a lot of it is derivative? And so the question is, yeah, how much of the creative works we see today are just derivative of what's been done in the past versus what is truly innovative, right? Like I think a good example is like, would AI have ever thought of taping a banana to a wall being one of the most
Or shredding
valuable art?
a piece of art
Yeah,
on the wall
yeah,
through
right.
its
Would
brain.
AI have thought of that? Probably not. There's a lot more to that in terms of
Or
what
even if
creating
you
art.
say that in fashion, it's a regurgitation of what came before and is a
Yeah,
recycling,
yeah.
but the way you juxtapose the different pieces in today's world, because a big part of my practice is also fashion too. I represent a lot of fashion companies and designers. It's different. Maybe the style has been there before, but not the color combination
Mm,
or the way you use it juxtapose it with something else. That
right,
hasn't been done before. It's a
right.
fresh look on what has been done in the past. So
Derivative,
it's
arguably,
a
right? Still,
derivative work. It's a reconstruction of, in fact, the book I was going to recommend
yeah,
was I think you've seen it in the document. Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
yeah. Still like
Feel
an
like
artist.
an
Yeah,
artist. So it's taking what has been done before and maybe not even consciously, but subconsciously redoing it. But in the way you redo it, there's creativity in the way that you do redo it.
yeah,
And is AI capable of redoing it in that specific way? Even in generating a contract, which is why I say there is no template
right.
because I have to change language in so many different ways to
Yeah,
situation with the different nuances within one single paragraph, right?
right.
Yeah, it's maybe part of it was in another contract or another one of it was in another template, but not the way I've strung it together for this particular situation.
Right. No, so true. So
Is
true.
AI, I mean, how many prompts do I have to give it to be able to come up with that, whereas I could probably do it much faster?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I think it's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see how I think it's been a good second look too at some of my drafting too. I was a application I use called Spellbook. Again, if sponsors out there, Spellbook, we'll take your money. But we use it. It's like a word plugin. And when I'm drafting a document, I'll actually have it go through. And I was just doing this on operating agreement the other day, and I said, okay, yeah, here's kind of what the client wants to see, what they've agreed to in their terms, and it actually highlighted some issues too that I was like, oh yeah, actually, we could modify this language a little bit here too, some of the tax language. So, I feel like it's another good way to check our work, another good colleague. That's why they call it kind of co-counsel to kind of review things. But is it perfect? By no means. Would I just allow it to do its thing on its own? Right? I definitely have to get in there.
Yeah, or a lot of times I'm drafting cover letters or emails and my mind is at two places at the same time, or I'm just really upset and I can't really think clearly.
Right.
And because there's so much I want to say, and I draft my own email and I put it into some AI model, and then it gives me a different version. I'm like, "Oh, yes, okay. Now it toned it down. It
Right,
made
exactly,
make more
exactly,
sense,
exactly.
clarified what I was saying. Yes, that's what I was trying to say." So in that capacity, yes,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I think it's very useful in that capacity. And I have to go check out spell book.
Yeah, Spellbook is interesting. I would recommend worth checking it out. It's been pretty useful, yeah, for us, yeah.
Is it different than Grammarly?
Yeah, very much, very much. It uses a lot of the practical law and, like, a lot of the contracts from Westlaw and others for analyzing contracts and also language. I think it has a huge database of, like, contract language that I
Oh,
found. It does and it also helps you, like, put comments in. So, like, I like when I edit contracts, I always wanna put an explanatory comment there, and it actually helps you draft that as well. So, it's been really useful. I mean, it affects the economics of what we do a little bit, but, I think in providing the best work product for our client, it is pretty useful. So, yeah.
for contract analysis. See, now
Yeah.
you are selling it to me and my, colleagues.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. They should pay me. I should get a
You should get a
referral.
commission.
Exactly, exactly.
So, Nadia, we do what's called our rapid fire round to kind of close things out. So, you already answered our first question, which was going to be what's a book every entrepreneur or creative should read? And I was hoping you could just expound on that a little bit of why you love this book so much.
Yeah, so Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, it talks about sort of the demystifies the creative process, right? And it kind of breaks it down in steps and it's a short little read. And, I feel like anytime you're stuck or you kind of feel maybe a little discouraged, it's a good thing to kind of look over and remind yourself that everything comes from different places and we all get inspired from people who created before us. So I find that book very encouraging, inspiring, and helpful.
Is
Perfect.
there, so the second question is, like, is there a daily habit that keeps you sharp?
Yeah, shutting off the phone, computer, and everything.
I love it. I love it, yes.
What does success mean to you today
Versus yesterday?
Yeah.
versus
Tomorrow.
yesterday?
Versus yesterday versus 5 years ago, 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, in my parents' eyes or in my eyes?
In
Your eyes,
your
your
eyes.
eyes,
Maybe in my eyes or, in our eyes. Yeah.
both. I mean, yeah, I'd be interested to hear both perspectives, yeah.
Well, I'm a loser, I didn't become a doctor.
Yeah, all of us on
Yeah,
this
totally.
call.
Yeah, so that's a non-starter right there. And why couldn't I be like my cousins who are multi-billionaires and entrepreneurs working on AI?
Yeah. How about you? How about you?
Yeah,
So
what do you
What is
think?
interesting to
it's
you?
relative and in the eye of the beholder. Helping my clients, and it sounds cliche, but doing a good job and being able to communicate what they need, I think that's a really big part of it. Being able to convince my client that what I'm telling them is in their best interest, and to take the advice and implement it, especially in the age of AI. I feel like we're competing with AI now.
We are, yeah, you're right, you're right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So, Nadia, this has been a fantastic conversation. Usually it's about 20 to 30 minutes. This went on longer because I think it was your answers are so interesting, and, we really appreciate you taking the time. Where can people find you in case someone wants to reach out, someone has an entertainment law question? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn and all social platforms. You can find me by my name. You can find me on YouTube. My website is all listed at nadiadavari.com, davarilaw.net.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
reach
Well,
out.
yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. You really found this episode fascinating and insightful into the entertainment world. We've had producers on in the past, and I think hearing it from an entertainment lawyer is a great perspective to have for a lot of our clients, especially because we're in LA and there's so much of it revolves around entertainment work. So thank you again for your insights, for your
Thanks
time,
for having me.
and sharing with us. Yes, and until next time, thank you all for listening. Please like, comment, share for more. We love to hear back from our listeners. And until next time, I'm Pankaj Raval.
And I'm Sahil Chaudhry, and this has been Letters of Intent.